All right. So I wanted to do just a little recap of what we have learned such far. And if you have any questions, we can come back and maybe discuss some of these practices that we've learned. And in our first class, we talked a little bit about the vagus nerve. And so we have this nerve that runs from the cranial all the way down through the heart and into our stomach, into our digestion. And we practice skills to help activate it. And it's interesting because when you think about trying to be calm, you don't think about being active. But this nerve is the nerve that is responsible for our parasympathetic. So this is how we move into rest and digest. So if activating the vagus nerve sounds weird, just say we're activating rest and digest, or we're bringing in calm. And some of the practices that we talked about was humming. We even practice the Ayurvedic practice of covering the ears. Gargling does that. Someone with that gargle, that will activate it. So same as singing. And then we did the salamander, and that was when we tilted the head and we moved those eyes far. And then there was a paper that showed you how to do it on all four. And so those were practices for the vagus nerve. And you want to teach this vagus nerve how to relax. And so it's very interesting. Many of us that have been in this work field, all of you, right? We took on very masculine roles of being successful, of moving forward. It got to the point that that's what felt normal for us. And the body begins to find that new norm, and it feels like that's where it needs to be. So it takes a lot of practice to get it back into that state of calm. And I have this analogy, I used to work with children. If you have a child that was abused, a lot of times they'll run to that abuser, right? Or when I would be in the classroom, that child, they wouldn't respond unless I would go yell, because that's what the norm was, right? So they look for that comfort. They look for that place where the familiar, yes. And so our body got used to being on high alert. I respond better last minute, right? That's when I do my best work. And so there's a lot of years that we've created that. So it's going to take time to reteach the body how to relax. And it's really easy for it to move back into that, right? And so this activating the vagus nerve is an excellent way to reteach that body to relax. And so we did for some of you that came for the health fair yesterday, they had this machine you put your hands on and they read your aura. And my aura was all about in my head. Right? Nothing about in my body. and as much as I practice, it still tells you there's a lot of thinking going on. We live in a very cognitive world. We live in a very problem-solving world. And so these practices that we have been learning, that you have to practice them every day, and you have to practice over and over for them to really start to affect your reduction of stress. And I love learning, and I will read every book, but I'm not always good at implementation. And so for me, this is my practice too, right? So this is me starting to practice what we've learned. So, all right. So we also talked a little bit about the gut brain. So we talked about how what is happening in the gut affects the brain. And so we have these bacteria, this microbiome that lives in here, and it's telling the body to do certain things. It's telling it to lose weight. It's telling it to activate. It could be anxiety, it could be depression. And so we want to make sure that we're also taking care of our gut. And so we talked a little bit about that connection and how what you eat affects stress, right? And there are foods that calm the nervous system. There are foods that excite it. And some of them are pretty common, like, you think of caffeine, that's going to excite, right? And so you had some handouts that kind of showed you which was which. And so we also want to be mindful of how we eat, not eating as we're driving, eating in front of the television, because that's still telling the body, take all this stuff in, we're going to multitask again, right? I can only digest the food. I can't digest the food and digest the news or digest what someone is talking to me about. And so it's a practice to be mindful. And so part of all of this reducing stress is looking at what are we putting in the body? How is it affecting us? And how do we put that into our body? And are we being mindful about that? Today, we're going to talk a little bit about thoughts. And so we're going to be moving into this reframing our stress, right? And we've already started some of that. I have some more strategies. These are my strategy pile here. And so we talked a little bit about our beliefs. And I want to bring you back to something that was on the board when we first started, when we talked about that bucket of all the stress and how it fills up. It fills up with the stress of having to pay the bills. It fills up with lotions or things in the air that are causing stress. There's also what we call the adverse childhood events, ACEs. And so when we think about how we go through life today, many of our beliefs are still based on these events that happened to us when we were young. So if I was taught as a young child that the world is dangerous, if I was little and I got bullied at school and I had to be aware, right? Or if I lived in a family where mom and dad fought, or there was just something happening in my life that I had to be on alert, that's what I'm carrying even now, right? And so how I see us is still shaped by these thoughts. And so that tells me that your thoughts are affecting how stressed you feel. So we're sitting in here and someone happens to walk by and I think, oh, you know, because I'm out here running and this is a nice place. I think, oh, wow, that reminds me I need to get out in nature. Someone else may see that person and it might become frightful for them. And that elevates your stress, right? So we looked at catching those moments. So when you start to feel stress in the body, going back and writing it down, right? And trying to connect what was happening, right? Because then we can probably link it back to a person. And then we can even go back even further. Why is that eliciting that feeling of stress? There's some common ones: going to the dentist, going to the doctor. All of us as children were forced to do that. I'm generalizing, but most of us, right? And these are scary events. So even as adults, even though we know, we still carry that. And we're not even thinking, we may be thinking this is okay, but the body is like, you know, because it remembers that. And so we have to start being more conscientious because we can change these thoughts. We don't have to respond. And so that goes back to that tracking sheet that we had. Now I did add another little sheet in here if you happen not to find your tracking one, but we want to start really paying attention to those moments in life when we start to feel some stress. So when you start to feel anxious, you start to feel your shoulders rising up, you feel your chest, we want to associate it to, what am I thinking right now? What just happened? Did I smell something? Did I see something? Did someone say something? And start making those connections, because those connections will help us start to get some space and some distance, right? And so that's what we want, so that we're observing it, and then we get to choose. We get to actually change the way we think. So I think I had shared this story with you. This comes from Dr. Bruce Lipton, who did the biology of belief. And he talks about the nocebo effect. We have the placebo effect. The doctor comes in and says, hey, this pill is going to cure you. You take it and suddenly you feel better. We don't know if it was the pill, if it was our belief. We actually do know, right, that the belief can cure us. People have been given the sugar pill and been cured. People have been told that they're going to get chemotherapy and lost their hair, and they were given the placebo. They were given that. And so the mind is very powerful. And so we want to catch these beliefs because they're shaping how we're feeling, experiencing the world. How much stress are we feeling? Because our beliefs are shaped around that. And so I shared my story. I think I shared the story about the pit bull. How I get chased and I run in and my heart is beating, but I'm safe now. And I go and I tell Sally the story, and my heart's beating again, and it's like I'm back there again. As you retell these stories of your past, whether you realize you're retelling them or not, you're going back there and you're experiencing that stress. And that's why we have to practice these vagus nerves, right? Because we're constantly bringing that elevation back up to where it was again. And we have to practice going back down. And we also have to recognize it so we don't have to allow it to keep going back up again. And we're going to do some more practices for that. So, and yes.
I just wonder how you're spelling nocebo. Is it like which node is it?
No is in no, N-O,
Okay.
the nocebo. So it's interesting, yeah, because and you know it's a placebo. But so the research is very interesting. Even if I tell you it's a placebo, if I'm wearing a white coat and I tell you it's a placebo, you still get better. There's research that shows, like, I think the red pill works better than the blue pill. If it has a name that you can't decipher, it works better. If it costs more, it works better. There's just certain things.
I know one, the relationship that you have with your medical provider, the better the relationship, the healthier you will be.
Isn't that
Oh,
nice?
yeah.
Just
Yeah,
because
that
you have a
totally
connection.
Makes sense.
And each
Yeah.
time you go, you have a different doctor, right? You have a different person. you have
Yeah,
a different-
that's never good.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yes. I know that sometimes people are going in and before surgery, they will ask for the practitioners to like do something special, whether it's, you know, say something positive as they're going in or under, right? And so, but it does take that trust and it has that communication that you have to create. So yes, the mind is very good, very good. One thing that I wanted to remind us is that when we are stressed, and you could like imagine, like if you're stressed, your body's feeling tight. And if you squeeze your hand like this, how long do you think you could squeeze it before you were either exhausted and you had to open it, or it was so tight and so sore you couldn't open it? And that's what your body is experiencing, right? It's just so tight and tense. And yet it's easy to come back here because I've been here so long. This is what feels comfortable. This feels very uncomfortable. This is what feels comfortable, even though it's hurting me, right? So, all right. So let me go through my notes. Okay. So there is some research that shows your personality can affect how stressed you are. So whether you are optimistic or pessimistic, if you're skeptical, cynical, these all affect how you experience stress. And so it goes back to, you know, I see the person running down there and I'm thinking, oh, look at them working out. They must be nice people. And someone else is like, what are they doing there? You know, what are they checking out the houses? Are they like causes some stress, right? And so we want to catch those. We want to catch those moments where we are creating stories or that we find ourselves moving towards that negative view.
Here's another one. I'm just full of these tidbits.
That's good.
People who are aging, who feel more optimistic about aging, live longer.
Yes.
Like
Like
7
30
years
I
or
mean,
something.
it's like a long time.
Yeah,
People live
yeah.
longer. So
Your attitude.
it's your attitude. And if you were raised to think that 50 was old, right? How are you feeling now? Right?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
And how many people I hear, you know, I love listening to podcasts because we're always interviewing doctors and people that have written books and different things.
Yeah.
And I hear a lot of people worrying, like when they're in their 20s, they're thinking 30 is old. And I'm like, oh my gosh, dear, you know, it's life is going to be hard if we grow up thinking about aging as being hard, right?
It's so youth oriented.
Yes, we
that
are.
It's funny that somebody who's 37, they're already thinking about Botox. Actually, I read that, you know, in their 20s, they're worried
Oh,
about
no,
Yeah.
they do.
Botox.
Very
and
young.
It's
It's sad.
frankly, I think it's very sad.
Yeah, but they're finding, I watched a really insightful interview and it really kind of presents itself to mention only because what you're talking about. This woman is she wrote a book and I can't tell you the name of it right now, but I could look it up for you. She wrote a book based on the what do you call them, the decades and where people lie in the type of person you are, whether you're a baby boomer or you're Gen Zer or you're all this stuff. And they're finding that, you know, the not millennials, but below that is the Gen Z, right? Because there's Gen X, And now it's Z, and then there's another one now even that they are trying, they're figuring out what they're gonna call them because they have to start over alpha or something like that. So the last generation, that generation I'm talking about, because they've experienced at a very young age, some in elementary school or high school where they've experienced the pandemic. They experienced this isolation, this just all shooting. Yeah, all this stuff that they are already, and also the ages stuff, they're experiencing that about, cause we didn't, baby boomers, well, I did not. I was like, looked up to my elders, they were my mentors, I didn't think about them as being old, it's like, I knew my great grandparents. So it's a whole different relationship, a whole different thought process, they're living a whole different kind of life. And cause, oh, I know what it was on, he was interviewing this woman. Anyway, he's a comedian, but he's serious too. And he said, hey, he says, all I can see is that generation is the ones who are crying and they're babies and they're stomping their way around and they don't, you know, they're so offended by everything, you know, and it's true, there is a lot of that, but their creatures and habits and everything are being formed by this life that they've not necessarily chosen, but they were born into this time period. You know, we were kind of one of the most resilient, is what they say about baby boomers, because we
used to have to hide under the desk.
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
different things,
Do you remember
right?
Yes.
Yes.
Did you have under the desks, but
Yeah.
you knew that.
It was just a drill.
The
that
Russians
wouldn't
might
do
come
anything,
and-
that would
Right, it was a drill. I grew up in California and we had to like
Earthquake drill.
earthquake drills, yeah, so, but I still don't have
3
a
legs.
fear, like I just, didn't, you know, maybe it was the gun thing, nobody had a gun. in School, and my graduating class was 1,000. Nobody would carry, never,
It was
ever.
just
Ever.
defense.
People were like hippie and hanging around trees and just, you know, nobody. So it was, nobody, it was a totally different time, but I guess what I'm saying is how telling that will be when it comes to the stressors and it comes to
They're
their
completely
lives.
stressed
Yes.
out.
Oh my
The
God,
resilience. to
yeah,
stress.
and
Yes.
yes. So it's interesting, and I, you know, it's no fault of mothers or fathers or the parents, it's just that they have some tasks ahead of them to figure out how to possibly change some of that before it gets embedded. I would think that would be my thought process if I was a parent going, oh my God, you know, I don't want my child to run away from everything because they think there's something bad happening. I want them to be able to, you know, be present and feel comfort and happiness, even if it's not the best thing, because you that's another thing, you get into that mode of like, if it's not exactly what you've envisioned, because that's what you've been, you know, kind of, again, you're watching everything online, and so you're seeing perfection, you know, everybody looks perfect, everybody has everything, oh my God, it's just, it goes on and on. So it's an interesting
I think
thing.
they're a little more cynical
Oh, yeah,
is their
yeah,
defense, because I've got a daughter who's 37. And I think they're just a little more cynical about life. Just still fall in love and do things, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Travel, whatever.
yeah,
So it doesn't, but I think it's the generation even below that. you know,
yeah.
The X and the Z and
That
whatever.
Gen Z and alphas are the ones I'm concerned about. You know, millennials are
I've
actually,
lost track of it.
everybody was worried about the millennials, and they're actually finding that the studies about millennials, and this is kind of positive, that they are the ones who are actually, they've been able to save money, they've been able to secure good jobs, they've graduated if they went to college, they're paying their bills, they're buying homes, they're starting families, they're doers, and everybody thought they were the lazies, if you remember.
Yeah,
Millennials, they're all, oh God, but they're not at all. They're actually saving our economy, believe it or not. So it's interesting. If you look at all that, it's just kind of an interesting thing to see.
So it goes back to what, you know, we were talking about, all of our experiences are affecting how we carry stress, right? How we perceive life, our
Definitely.
perception of all the events. And whether it was generational, whether it was socially or culturally, or whether it
all
was
that.
you personally, it's still affecting you. They found that, descendants of individuals that were in the Holocaust have more chance of having breast cancer, right? What else is that affecting? So the ACE study goes back and it looks like if you had a certain situation, and trauma is different for different people. Parents fighting could be considered moving more than once affects your health as an adult, which has got to affect how you carry yourself in stress. And so, but it doesn't mean that you can't change and we
Right.
can't, you know,
Right.
you can't shift.
Right.
I'd like to ask you a question, and I don't want to hijack what your plan is to talk about. I just want to see if you can, at some point while we're all meeting, address this. So my neighbor next door was robbed on Thanksgiving. I've been to Presbyterian, I was married to somebody who worked at Sandia. All of these different entities have been hacked. I have sleep apnea, my CPAP equipment provider has been hacked. I actually have this big envelope full of all the hacks. There's probably, and I'm not exaggerating, 8 or 9 of them. Well, when I got home today from yoga, there was an email from Experian, the credit monitoring people that are provided from all the hacks. Different, you know, you get hacked and they go, oh, well, we'll give you 1 year free monitor. I know that would make everything better. But at any rate, I get an email that says your telephone number is now out in the dark web or whatever, you know. These are these are stressful
stressors.
events.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure how mindfulness can somehow reduce the realistic stress. I mean, if you're not stressed by your neighbor being robbed and knowing that your phone number and name and address are out there on the dark web, with potential for identity fraud. You know, in other words, the stress is a normal reaction. This isn't about, you know, the milk that I wanted to pick up is they're out of milk.
So no, it's true, because there's gonna be stress, and that stress is every day now. Right now, we have to think about different stressors than our parents did. Our parents didn't have those same stressors. There's always gonna be stress. It's how resilient you are to come back. And how you see it is gonna be different than how each of us see it. Some of us are gonna be like, darn, I can't believe that happened again, and now I have to change all this. Some of us are gonna say, oh my gosh, I need to go live out off the grid and not have, I mean, right, so there's 2 extremes, right? And we try to find that balance in
Well,
there.
each incident that I'm describing poses a threat, a real threat. It's not
to your
it's not something that
security.
you come across every
Yeah.
day, but the fact that your next door neighbor has been robbed is a reminder, knock, knock, you could be next.
Oh, no, there
Yes.
is something, I had a neighbor that was robbed before, and I remember my dog barked and woke us up. Thank God. But it wasn't even our place, but yeah, I remember.
But I mean,
It's,
after you hear it,
yeah,
after
yeah.
you
then you think.
then
yeah,
you go,
yeah.
gee, you know, that could happen
Yes.
to
And
me.
it could, so what do we do to manage that, right? So some of it are these practices to bring our body back into alignment. Then we're much more able to address the stress. And then you decide, you know, what can I do? What's gonna make me feel comfortable? Do I need an alarm system? Do I need a dog? Do I need, you know, because it's gonna be there. So what can you do to help you feel comfortable? If you've been robbed, it's hard going home each day, because it
Yeah, that
stays
sucks.
with you for a long
Yes, my
time,
neighbor
right?
is a witch, she lives alone, her husband died a long time ago.
Yeah.
And no dog.
And it's hard, right? And so then, but you also are held captive by these predators too, right? When you allow them to like lock yourself in and so we have to, I don't know what the
Yeah.
answer is for you.
I just wondered
Finding that,
because I could
Because
feel,
it is real.
I could feel as the email says, log in and see
Mhm.
what we have to tell you, and I could feel all of my
Just coming back up. again.
bodies, you know,
Yeah.
everything
And
getting
so-
tense and
Yeah.
the hearts, you know, it's just, you can't control it. You're reacting
Yes.
physically.
Yeah.
And then, I look, you know, I go and look and it's basically says, it's very low risk for identity fraud. You will get more spam calls.
And so you could, so you find a way to
And it says,
to relax.
if you haven't already called, no,
That, yeah. mhm,
do
the
not
no
call,
notification.
do not call us. So I, you know, I'm, whatever they suggest, I'm doing it,
Mhm,
right? And those are the things.
And that's your proactive,
It's going
yes.
down.
Yes,
Down, and I talked to my neighbor who was robbed, and I find out that she did some dumb things and didn't do things that would have been really,
yes,
like leaving her lights on 24/7 while she was out of town for Thanksgiving, apparently was a giveaway.
or
Yeah.
telling people that you're gone, or, I mean, there's signs leaving
Or
your
someone
mail
not
in the
collecting your
box.
mail.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a very common thing to just turn, you know, the,
Yeah.
the
The
lamp
timers.
timers,
Mhm.
okay, I mean, I have timers all over my house just because I'm lazy. And I, you know, they turn the lights on, they turn the lights off when I
No,
go to
it's
bed.
safe, it's safe.
To not,
Even
you know,
if they're
those are really simple things that she
Yes.
could have done, and
Yes.
it was kind of stupid not to.
And those are the things that help, so
People
you do
know.
those things that help you feel better, right? Some people feel better when they put bars on their window.
Right.
And so you find, what we don't want though, is that they now are like locking you in your house and you can't come out.
Well, I don't want my nervous system to be on high alert
All
as
the
a
time.
norm now
Yes,
because of these things, because they're scary. These are things that, your identity and your home, they cut pretty close to your
mhm,
feelings of personal security.
yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, they do,
Oh,
they do. So we can't take that away.
Mm-mm.
It's
never gonna
you
go away
learning
now.
to, how do you find those times to then now reduce that stress in your body, right? How do you find that ability to allow the body to find that calm again? Because remember, in the beginning, we had that little picture of the brain too, because when you're stressed, you're reacting. You're not working in this frontal lobe. Your executive function is not at its best. And so then we do respond. And it's not saying, you know, that's your body keeping you safe. But when our body was developed, it was never meant to be stress. It was meant to be stress. I'm being chased by a predator, and then I relax. I get chased again. And so we have to find that ebb and flow again, right? So we have
You
to,
can't stay in that high.
yeah, we have to bring it back in. Even though the threat's still out there, we come back and we take that bath, or we meditate, or we hum, or we do whatever it takes. And then because we know we're gonna be back out there again, and that threat's gonna be there. So one thing I had shared last time, the more you think about it, and the stories get bigger, remember those pathways in the brain get thicker, right? We create those bundles, they were called bundles. And those bundles, those pathways, start to be the path in your brain. And that's what we don't want, because then you're that cynical person, right? Or you're that pessimistic person, or you're that person that,
freaked out,
Yes.
paranoid person.
yes.
That's why you do yoga.
Yeah,
That's why you're doing the things you're doing. You're here. I mean, this is the practice.
so, and part
It's a
of this-
challenge.
It is, and
These are things, that's why I brought it up.
Yeah.
These are things that are not the norm, you know.
And you have no control.
Or you have a fight with somebody
Right.
and you're
You have no
tense, or, you know, you can't find your wallet and you feel tense. These are things that are very in your face. And that's why I thought I would just mention it, because
it's good.
Because
too.
there's no control too. There's absolutely zero control when that stuff happens. The only thing I know to do is I'm one of those, I'm like, I pick up the phone, I call my bank, I call everybody, and I'm like, this is the thing that's happening. I'm just giving you guys on alert. Watch my account, let me know if there's something weird. I'm letting you know. I've done this numerous times,
from having your wallet stolen or
or
something.
whatever it may be. Yeah, I've had charges that I'm like, I didn't do that. Where'd that come from?
Things we
How are
didn't
they-
have to worry about,
How
yeah.
are they charging me? Because they already, if somebody got my Prime account, who knows, somebody, I don't know. And so I was being charged twice for
Yeah,
my
that's
membership. My Amazon Prime was being taken from my account twice every month, and I was like, huh, that's so weird. When I caught it, I was like, and it was like a long, and so I'm when I caught it, I was like, what the heck? How come we didn't quite catch it sooner? But it had gone on for like, I don't know, 16 months or something. So sure enough, my bank was really good. They reimbursed every bit of it
Wow.
and took care of it and found where it was, and they cut that, that Prime had to work with them and get that account completely taken away, whatever. I just let someone else do it. I'm like that. I'm like, okay, let me do my part. I have to alert and do all the stuff, because this is my way of getting rid of stress. Like,
Yeah,
I'm like, this is not,
Delegate.
I'm not carrying it. Yeah, you're gonna carry this, because this is your department, not mine. And that's just me, and it helps me that way. It just does. I mean, I'm capable of taking care of these things on my own, but I choose not to. I'm not gonna carry it. I've been the other, and I'm like, I'm not doing that. They're better at monitoring that stuff, obviously, because it was for how many months? I didn't even see it. So like, okay, bank, that's your job. You gotta do that.
So, yeah, so you find tools, but each of us will handle it differently.
Right,
And a lot of that might be because, and I wanted to go back to your childhood, sometimes they call it complex trauma. You could have an accident, you could get in a car accident and there's trauma. And it's one incident, but if you had trauma over a long period of time when you were young, your stress bucket is really tiny, right? And how you handle stress is differently. And we all have different sizes, right? And sometimes you might be really good in one area and it feels like your bucket's big, in other areas it's not.
right.
And part of it goes
And I
back
know
to
that.
that control, right?
You're
And
right.
so if you know
I know where
this
I'm
is
not.
an area that really, and whatever reason, well, for whatever reason, it just pushes your buttons. We don't know. We don't always remember what it is. Sometimes you might have a glimpse of it, but finding those tools to help support you in that. And that's what my goal is during this class, was to try to find some tools and things to help. And so tapping was one of those, right? So when we do the tapping, it helps to get to those traumas that happened when we were youth that we may not be aware of. And that helps to grow the bucket just a little bit. We'll also practice a little bit of neurolinguistic programming today, but let's finish this and then we can get into some practices. So sometimes stress can come because of what our thoughts are about what we have and what we don't have. We live in a world, and you talked about Instagram or any of the social media, and we start to see everybody else has nice cars, everybody else's life is running smooth, everybody else gets up at 5, works out, gets the meals ready for the kids, and are perfectly dressed. We have this illusion that everybody's life is running smooth, but ours sometimes, right? That can cause stress. That's just a thought, right? We never really checked it, but we create thoughts, and sometimes those thoughts can create some resentment. I should have that. Why do they get that? I wish I had parents that were millionaires and I inherited a good life, right? Why did I have to work so hard? So and these thoughts create stress in our life. And this one we go back to that journaling, the gratitude journaling, being happy with what we have. Because when we constantly are looking for what we don't have, it feels stressful. And so if we want to reduce stress, we'll have to start feeling some gratitude for what we have. And I'm on the back sheet of the first page, and on the back, I wrote down again what happens when we create this suffering. And I'm saying we created, right? We didn't always. There was always like keeping up with the Joneses, right? Do you remember that? Only the rich people. Now everybody wants to keep up with the Joneses. Everybody has extended their credit so that they have the mansion house, they have the nice car, but not everybody can live that life. But social media has put it in our reach where we want it. And when we feel like we don't have it, that can cause changes in the body. And our muscles can become decreased, our bone mass decreases. So when you're feeling stressed, it can also cause wrinkles. There is calcification in the hippocampus of the brain, and there's lots of discomfort in the body. So there's lots of reasons why we need to find ways to be happy with our life, right? And to be a little less stressed. When we are happy, so if we were to start writing and journaling today, I opened the door for someone and they smiled and they said, thanks, right? It seems so simple, right? But I touched someone's life. When we create these little pockets of happiness, our DHEA increases. That helps our youth. That makes us look youthful. It builds muscle, it builds bone. Our oxytocin increases. We feel better. Our nitric oxide, the frontal lobe increases. So starting some practices to bring in more happiness will create this resiliency in the body, which helps fight against stress. So we have some ways that we can do that, and that's what we're working here. Like, we're trying to create a plan. So we're trying to release and letting go, needing to control everything. Sorry, that goes back to stuff that we don't have any control over, right? Tapping we talked about. There is also ways that you can do energy healing. Reiki moves energy, so that stuck energy can cause stress. And meditation. And I will go back to meditation over and over because it is the most researched method to reduce stress and to build resiliency in the body. And meditation doesn't have to look like some of the meditations that maybe you were taught meditation look like, sitting in stillness for hours, right? It doesn't have to look like that. So I put on here another sheet for you because I want you to really start paying attention to what's stressing you. So when this comes up, not only are we writing it down, but then we check in, how do I feel? I feel constriction in the chest. I feel tightness here. And I feel myself responding negatively. And then you even go back and so yesterday was a little stressful. We're trying to get stuff ready. It doesn't take a lot to push me into my type A personality. But then I find that other people will say things to me. I read an email and I respond much more negatively than I would have otherwise, right? Those are those things we want to catch, right? Because once we catch it, then we can start to shift it. So I have I have a page for you that I'm going to pass out that has some other strategies on it. And one of them is name it, claim it, and reframe it. So some of the way that we can tame these thoughts, this stress, this way that we start to create stories that build into craziness is we name it. And so that's what we're doing, right? I'm feeling stressed about this. I'm feeling like I have no control, or I'm feeling like I'm feeling pressured, or I'm feeling like I'm being disrespected. I'm feeling whatever it is, right? And then we claim it. And that's how I'm feeling. And claiming it is just okay, right now. And it's okay. It's okay. This is not a good thing. And it's okay that we feel it. So we claim it. And then we reframe it.
I want you to know, when I read, they've got your phone number, I thought, I'm
Maybe I'll get a date.
I'm experiencing stress now.
Oh, there
And
you
I-
go. Nice.
Yeah,
nice.
I thought, oh, I can feel,
Aw.
my heart is suddenly beating, boom, 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 boom. I could feel the whole series of reptilian reaction in my body. And I was very mindful about it. I was thinking, this is so perfect. I'm going to stress reduction class in an hour.
Good for you. Good for you. It is a big
But I was
part.
aware of it. I
Yes.
realized, boy, I can, here comes the stress. I
Yes.
can feel it.
Good for you. That's a big step.
I
It's a
hope
big
that
step.
helps.
It does.
It does.
And
It
we'll,
does.
and
It's
we'll get
technology.
into that, because we'll talk about how. Okay. So another one on here is, where is it? Okay, so we know that stress is hard on the body. It activates all kinds of chemical releases that are not positive. We talked about the wrinkles, the decrease in bone. So we don't want it. So if you are saying, and I'm saying you're saying yes to stress activities, sometimes we don't have a choice, but we know stress activities are coming into our life. We have to say yes to activities that balance that stress. So I created a little sheet here for you. So you have to start recognizing, so we know the things that deplete our stress, our energy, right? The kids, the car, the gas, the bills, we can go on. We've already, but what are the things that feed you energy? What are the things that help you feel less stressed?
Right?
Watering.
Yes.
Watering.
Was nice.
When I get my Einstein bagels on Monday and I get $6 or $7 off, I give a $5 or $6 tip.
Ah, nice.
And they look at me like I'm crazy and But
You
I
didn't pay it
know
forward.
it makes me feel really, really good,
Yeah,
Nice.
okay?
anytime I'm getting a deal, I'm gonna give them the other, because I'm.
Well, I actually
would've
said
spent
to
it.
this gal was
I
looking
like
at
to do
me,
that.
like she was new, and she looked at me like I was crazy, and I said, it makes me very happy that you're here.
Good.
I have to have my bagels, and
Yeah.
if you weren't here, I wouldn't be getting my bagels, and they closed, so I want you to be happy.
And you know what, and you touch someone's life, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
I love that.
$100 for $5.
Yeah.
So now, when you get that call, you get that email, you get that whatever, you have your list to go to. And maybe it won't happen right away. Maybe it won't be till like tomorrow or the next day but you replenish, right? So you have to create that list. And some people put it up on the wall, take a walk. Because when you're in it, you're not gonna think about this, right?
Right.
No, I know better, and I was last night, I couldn't sleep, it was like running through my brain, and like, practice, you know?
Breathing.
Yeah. So this is another resource for you. So there on the top of this, yeah,
Something to that, I had this experience, it's been a little while now, but I was thinking about compassion and like looking towards compassion. And somehow this thing came to me that it's okay. You can have compassion to yourself.
Absolutely.
And,
it's okay that I'm scared or I'm mad,
Mhm.
right? It's okay, this wasn't okay that this happened to me, right?
I overreacted after these stressful things today, but you know what? It's okay.
Good, nice skill, I like that,
Yeah,
yes,
that's,
yes. And we are human, right?
Mhm.
If we were talking and I told you I did this and I did this, you would extend that towards me.
Mhm.
We don't always extend it towards ourselves.
Right.
Mhm.
And so,
It's
And I
funny
can be
because,
very stress creating.
mhm,
Our
yeah.
self-criticisms
oh,
can be very
it's
stressful.
not, yeah, and I read 3 different affirmation books every morning.
it's a good practice.
And it's funny that what you just said was exactly what one of them was talking about. Exactly what you just said about how we're so forgiving of others and, you know, all these other things but ourselves, if, we don't practice the same sort of, compassion,
I
and just
should
letting
get better,
go.
I'm
Yeah,
stronger.
yeah, so
I
it was
should-
a great read. I read it, it's just a page, but I was like, oh, that's a good.
I call
And you
it
just said it,
forgiveness.
it's exactly what it was.
I
Yeah.
forgive myself, for my faults.
Mhm.
I want
I
other
have to do
people
it
to
daily.
forgive me,
I don't always.
and I feel like I need to forgive myself, and
I do it
for
daily.
me, that's been huge.
That's okay.
It's okay. I know you yelled at,
Yes, you-
you yelled at the cat. You didn't mean to. but-
And you can go back, you
Yeah.
can go back, you can correct anything. So,
Yeah.
on the top of this page, I have the 3 M's for reducing stress. And 3 little things that are super easy, micro, so micro means just tiny bursts. So we've talked before, the importance of meditation, and I could get up in the morning and I could meditate for an hour, but then I go back into my day and my stress, and everything that I did in the morning. So it's actually better to have short breaks, bursts of like breathing, meditating, just the little breaks throughout the day rather than that big chunk. And so these are micro movements that you do through the day. The first one is a micro engagement. We know that social engagement is very healing for the body. So what you said, you give a tip, but you also say something. I appreciate you. I open the door for someone. Here, let me get the door for you, right? You smile at someone. That is a micro engagement.
I call it a connection.
Yes, micro connection,
It's
right?
a connection, and
A human.
what's so beautiful is you can just go through the day giving those connections. Just holding the door open so someone else can go through, or letting somebody in when you're driving.
Imagine that. So you have the blinker on. We don't speed up and close
Do
the
it
gap.
all day long, and
It feeds you.
it's
It
gives
does.
you a high.
Mhm.
At least I experience a high. I've never been so happy as I've been in the last couple of years. And it's stuff like that where you just, it's a happy connection. It's 1 minute or 30 seconds.
That's how, that is so, it's so simple, but it's so how I live. I left here and had to go to the grocery store, and just real quick, when I went in, I see these same ladies every single time, one's in the deli, one's in the bakery, and they're just really sweet. But I was in my head kind of just because I was doing a quick trip, so I was kind of doing my stuff, and all of a sudden I heard this voice going, "Hi, Sally," across the store, and I look up and I'm like, I go, "Hi, Maria." And she's the baker girl, and she's so sweet, and I says, "Oh, those cupcakes are so good." I had to tell her, and I said, "Hey, did you get that Valentine present that you were supposed to get?" Because she told me what she was getting for Valentine's, and she told me, "Yes, I got it all installed in my car." And it was a cute, quick conversation, but I loved it, and
Yes.
that's
And so did she.
I do that all the time. Yes,
Yes. And that's this side, right? That's this side here. And
Yes.
it didn't cost you.
I can
anything.
remember after I had COVID the first time, I was locked in for a long, there were 10 weeks without seeing anybody. I
Oh,
was
God.
I was in not a good way, and
Yeah,
I
that-
finally couldn't get out of the house, and I called a friend, and it was Mother's Day, and she picked me up. We went to Trader Joe's, and we got I needed like a cart and a half, a bunch of food, and and I had that place where I was so stressed and so tired that I couldn't even. Well, do you like brown rice or white rice? I was like, what do you like? It was like my
Couldn't
mind,
decide.
yeah,
No,
my
that's part
mind
of
was just
COVID.
in such a place. But we went through this whole process, and she texted me later, and it was such a dear thing. And she said, I'm so glad we did this together. It was such a great experience for me. I saw little things I hadn't seen before. She was like thanking me for
Oh,
this
how
wonderful
cute.
gift.
yes.
But the other thing that I noticed is that day before I got the courage to call, I walked outside of my house and I walked up and down the street, and I literally hadn't been outside in like too long. And there was a young gentleman walking down the street, and he just smiled at me and said, "How are you doing?" Something about just that smile.
Oh, yeah.
That's
You're
it.
still
Look,
remembering.
I was gonna say, look how long ago
It's-
that was.
That's still with you.
Yeah.
That,
I like to say
I love
to
that.
Denise, I'll send her a little text. And
Oh,
go,
yeah,
"Great class."
I know.
It takes me 10 seconds.
no, I know, there is something. to
And
that.
it's, I feel a connection. She writes back
Yes.
with a, hissy emoji or something. That's what I'm talking.
Mhm.
Little teeny weenies that to make someone else feel a little bit better, and it costs nothing, it takes no time. And it's, when you get into the habit of doing it,
It becomes who you are. It becomes now your
Yes.
new personality.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and that's what we want. So I also have on here micro movement. So sitting can cause stress. The
Mhm.
best way to relieve stress is moving your body. Micro movements. You don't have to schedule a time to go to the gym for an hour. We could get up and walk around the chairs, right? We did a little movement before we started. Every time you switch from one activity to another, you just were in the kitchen, you move into the living room, do a little happy dance, right? Some micro movements. And then mindfulness. So that's the taking a breath, closing the eyes, visualizing the water. Some mindfulness, could be meditation, could be breath, it could be humming throughout the day. And that's going to help you find that balance again. So, all right, I'm going to do a couple more because I want to make sure I get through a lot of these tools. One place that we hold stress is in our jaw. You wake up and you've been clenching your teeth all night, right? And so we have a TMJ, we have to wear the mouth guards, so much going on. But if you just massage the jaw, you will release a lot of the stress in the body. And so this is a good practice before you go to bed. And if you are clenching at night when you wake up in the morning. So you can do however it feels comfortable. Sometimes I'll massage, sometimes I'll actually push like a pressure point. And I can feel that point where it feels sore, and I don't press on it, I go right under it and I kind of push up until it feels like it releases. The jaw is connected to so much, including your pelvic floor. Very interesting. We heard that, so,
Get me on it.
you know.
It's kind of hard to
I know.
Imagine how that works.
Well, that's the vagus nerve and all the, yeah,
Oh.
things are, yeah. Okay, so I have a couple things I'm gonna share. I'm gonna pass these around. You can just take a couple. This is called shift. And it's not really about stress, but it's just a powerful thing to think that you can shift what you're thinking at any time. You can shift your attitude at any time. So if it happens to be associated to stress and you think, I'm just gonna shift, I don't wanna be here, right? Maybe you wanna stay there for a little while. Maybe you think I deserve at least 5 minutes, okay? But then you wanna shift. And so these are just little tips on how to shift. And so you could grab a few if you want, whatever you feel like feels good for you. So last week, the week before, one of the compounding pharmacy had a dinner where we went to Matucci's and they had a guest speaker come in and talk about women's hormones. So as we get older, our hormones kind of fluctuate. This causes a lot of the very same responses to the body, like stress, right? It's really affecting our muscles, our memory, our attitude, our attention. But I wanted to read this a little section in here because it talks in this book about adaptogenic herbs for chronic stress. And so I just love the fact that when we're talking and we're learning, that this knowledge is being spread to other areas and other genres and other mediums of helping women. And so this book goes through how plant adaptogens are compounds that increase the ability of an organism to adapt to the environmental factors and to avoid damage from these factors. So the organism is us. And so when we use plant adaptogens, it helps our body adapt to stress. And so inside here, it lists a lot of the adaptogens that we've already talked about. One of them was ashwagandha. And remember, we did a special gummy with ashwagandha in it. Ashwagandha will help build the immune system. It enhances your endurance and your strength. It has antibacterial properties. It helps preserve adrenal function. Adrenal is one of the biggest areas that stress affects. It also talks, it goes on and on several pages of ashwagandha. It's got bacopa, cordyceps, which are mushrooms. It also goes into holy basil. Holy basil was the tea that I sent home with you. And holy basil is really good for all kinds of things, including anxiety, asthma, back pain, GI tract disorders, indigestion. So these are all things that stress affects too, right? Urinary disease.
Is that the rose tea that you gave?
Yes,
me?
so that's the holy basil. And so erythritol works in the body as an adaptogen. So one thing when you're looking at adding something to help build up that endurance in your body because stress is wearing us down, adaptogen is a really good answer. So I just kind of wanted to share it again.
No, I'm
because
glad
I
you
thought
did.
that
Great
yeah,
book, yeah.
yeah, it was a good book. So one strategy that we're going to talk about is CBT, cognitive behavior therapy. And I can lend this book out. I only have the one though, so I'm not sure how we would share it if someone's really interested in looking at this book. So cognitive behavior therapy is looking at how we think about events. And a lot of times our thoughts, they're based on how we were raised and we were reinforced. The brain wants to be in alignment. So if we feel that something is bad, like we were taught that stealing is bad, if we somehow found ourselves in a place of stealing, we would justify that. We want to always be in alignment. And so our thoughts are constantly shifting to match what our behaviors are. We can also change our thoughts so that our behaviors will come into alignment. And so some common thoughts that, when we're doing therapy that we work on is all or nothing thinking. And so this goes back to my husband never puts the toilet seat down. Never, ever. Well, it's not really true, is it? Maybe he does it more often. But when we start to experience life as it always happens, right? And we don't stop and does it really happen all the time? Is it maybe 40% of the time? Is it 50%? And we really go back and we challenge our beliefs. We just
Mhm.
believe, and so we start to practice this. And I'm sure you had people, all men are like this, right? All,
Oh, yeah, generalizing.
yes.
Yeah.
Well, when you send those messages, those are the messages we start to believe, and those are the messages that start to form our behaviors and affect our bodies. So just want to catch those beliefs sometimes, right? And so, so thinking about how we think, metacognition, right? Thinking about how we think will help us better adjust what we're thinking and how we're using our thoughts. And just trying to catch yourself when you catch yourself making generalizations like that, or those all or nothings. There's a story in here about a family that's eating, I can pass it around if someone wants to look at it. It's just really short techniques. There's a family, they're eating a meal and it's a nice meal. Everyone's ready to have some conversation about the day. And suddenly this big train comes through and it's super loud and the whole house is shaking. And all of a sudden the conversation stops. And we can no longer talk and we can't even think. And we have to wait for the train to pass. They've used that analogy of like a thought coming in, that thought that comes in and takes up all your energy, right? So all of a sudden this thing comes into your life and it's like that big train pushing through and suddenly everything else is on hold. And sometimes we try to stop the train or we try to like push back, right? And maybe we just need to let it go through.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But we are really good at holding on, right? So I will still remind my husband 50 years ago when he still didn't put that toilet seat down. Because, right, but catch these thoughts, right? Is it worth my health to hang on to some of these thoughts, right? All right, so I am going to do some it's past 4. Do you guys want to do a little neurolinguistic programming?
If you have time.
Okay,
Yeah, that's cool.
all right. So we talked a little bit about creating space. You're already doing this, right? When you catch yourself in a thought, you can say to yourself, this was our card this morning, right? I am not the thought. I am the observer of the thought. I am not the stress. I'm observing my body experiencing stress. We just want a little bit of a distance from that. Neurolinguistic programming is about giving me that distance. So you've done this with me before.
With a profound experience.
Yes, it was. Not everyone has a profound, but I love your story because it makes me feel good.
I just told Jenna about it yesterday.
Nice, nice. I'm not sure if you sat in, it was the tapping class.
She was sitting over there and you were the first person I talked to.
Okay,
Oh, yeah.
so think about an experience. It could be one that just happened to you, right? Think about an experience that caused some elevated stress for you. We are here now. If you feel like this is not comfortable to have a big experience, it could be something like someone cutting you off. Or someone not opening the door for you and your hands were full. Or it could have been something that was pretty traumatic. So bring up that experience. And when I shared the story about the pit bull dog that chased me, and remember how I told you when I retold it, it was like I was back there. I want you to go back to that experience the same way.
Could it be an ongoing experience or should I?
It can be an ongoing. As long as you're still experiencing a physical sensation and you can see it, it's okay.
Okay.
Yes. So you can leave the eyes open, you can soften your gaze, you can close your eyes, however you feel comfortable. But I want you to bring to mind an experience, something that's elevating stress in your body. You can feel the heart beating a little bit faster, or maybe there's tension in the chest or in the forehead. And I want you to put yourself back at that time. I want you to see the people that you're with. I want you to notice what you're wearing. Notice what they're wearing, if there's people with you, maybe there isn't. I want you to be able to look around you 360 degrees, all the way around, and see everything as if you were there in that moment. Maybe there was a scent and you can smell that scent. Maybe you could smell their breath or their cologne or their perfume, or there were flowers and you were outside. And then notice any other sounds around you. If you were inside, was there a television playing? If you're outside, did you hear the birds or cars driving by? I want you to bring to mind everything that would alert a sensation. What you're hearing, what you're feeling on your skin, the temperature of the air, what you smell in the air. Maybe even you were tasting something. Maybe there's a taste in your mouth. But bring to life this experience. And now check in with your body to notice how you feel. Notice if there's some tension in the heart space. Maybe there's tightness across the shoulders. Maybe your eyes are feeling tense. What are you noticing in your body? And now I want you to imagine that you're not there, but you're looking down upon yourself as if you could float. And you're looking down and you're watching this experience now. And you can still have empathy. You can still feel all of the emotions happening. You can hear them talking. You can hear yourself talking. You can still smell. But there's a little bit of distance. It's like you're watching it happen. And we're going to take a step back a little further. And now it's not like we're up above, but we're watching it on a television screen, maybe a movie screen. You can see the people, including you. You can see what you're wearing. You can hear the voices. You can hear the conversation. But now it's two-dimensional. You can't look around and see what else is around you. You don't know what else is happening in the room or in the environment. You can't smell what's happening. You can only see and you can only hear it. But even by watching it, you can still feel a little sensation in your body. There's still some tension. And I want you to reach out and turn the volume down. And now I can watch what's going on, but I can't hear it. I kind of know what's going on. I can see their expression, so I know whether they're angry or happy or sad. If there's fear or frustration, I can see that, but I really don't know. I'm only assuming. And do you remember when we watched television, it was black and white? I want you to take the color away, and now it's black and white. And it's actually getting a little boring now. I'm kind of distracted. I can't hear it. And it's black and white. It's even a little fuzzy. And I want you to turn the television off. And you'll just watch that picture shrink up into that little dot when you used to watch television and you turned it off. And it disappears. And I want you to turn around. And I want you to find a place that you feel good. This is your imaginary place. Maybe it's out in a field of flowers. Maybe it's up on the mountainside or at the beach. Maybe it's you with your family or friends. But imagine you now standing in this place that feels good. And look down to see what you're wearing. It's your favorite outfit. It's the one that you feel so good when you wear it. And I want you to notice the temperature of the air. Notice how perfect it is. And what do you hear? Is it your favorite song? Is it the voice of someone that you care about dearly? Are you listening to the birds? The ocean? What do you hear in your favorite place? And I can smell something. It's one of my favorite scents. And in this place, you can look around 360 degrees and see everything. And now when you check in with your body, you notice how calm it feels. The shoulders are relaxed. Your heart feels a little more open. There's a softness in the body and the heart. And as you look around, imagine that you could take this picture in and save it. Save it to a place, maybe in the heart or in the mind, that you can come back to anytime you choose. This is your special place. A place that helps you feel safe. A place that you feel happy. And when you're ready, go ahead and open the eyes. So for some people, it can be powerful. Some it takes a little while. But the goal is to find that place that you can get a little distance. I had these experiences. I wasn't always socially adept. And so if I'm sitting with a friend like Sally and I are having, and someone came up and said something rude or like they were attacking me, I would like freeze. I would not know what to say. I would just be like beside myself. I don't always respond good under stress. Sally might be saying, why didn't you tell them, right? Now, if I was sitting here and it happened to Sally, I'd be on top of it. I'd know exactly what to say. I'm not being attacked. NLP gives you that distance so that I can see it from the outside. And that's what we're looking for, because we don't respond, we're reacting, right? When we feel that stress. And so NLP is about just seeing a little distance. So sometimes when I'm in an uncomfortable place, maybe I'm going to be speaking in public, I will step outside of myself to see myself. Or if someone's like being rude or inappropriate, I will turn the volume down. Anything just to give me a little space. I'm not avoiding it. I just need to be able to react to my executive function, and I can't responding. So I did want to do some essential oils today.
Nice.
Yes. So that's neuro-linguistic programming, part of it. Essential oils are a great way to reduce stress too. They can calm the body. I did not bring my Datura. I usually use Datura, but I had some of these, and this one is 100% organic essential oil, lavender. I'm really pretty picky about my essential oils. I think that they should not be used neat, which means without a carrier oil, except for lavender is pretty safe. So you can put a little bit of essential oil on your hand, you rub it together, and you can take in a scent. For some people, lavender will just help you relax and help you calm. Everyone's different, right? So I am going to pass some lavender around if you'd like to try it. This is something, if you like lavender, I actually distill my own. I don't have essential oils. I have the hydrosol, which is the essential oil in the water. I can bring some, but you have to have like a bottle or something to take it in. I can bring some essential oil. I brought rose. Now this is an absolute. So rose petals are super delicate, and it takes tons and tons to get an essential oil. If you've ever wanted to buy rose, it would be like in the 100. But some people will take rose petals and they use a solvent to pull out the essence of it. It's a cheaper way of doing it, which makes it more affordable for you. So this is a rose absolute. So it's rose essential oil in jojoba oil. Not edible, This is not a one that you can consume,
Right,
but
right.
you can definitely smell it. So I use rose water, organic in my, the cream cheese has
Yeah.
rose in it, but that's
Oh,
an
it's so
edible
nice.
rose. This is,
Pretty.
it has rose petals.
It's
But
so pretty.
you might find that rose is a scent that helps you relax. And so you can find ways to carry this with you, and whenever you're feeling stressed, you can use this to bring you back to that balance, right? So an essential oil can easily be placed on that list of how do I re-energize myself, right? How do I find that calm again? So, all right. So we talked about journaling and the importance of finding gratitude. We talked about massaging the jaw, right? We talked about micro movement, micro meditations, micro mindfulness, micro connections, right? So we talked about that. And also naming it, claiming it, reframing it. So we've got some other ways to help build our resilience for stress and to build our body resilience, adaptogens. So holy basil is like one of the easiest and most accessible. Also ashwagandha, really accessible too. So, all right, any other questions or shares? Anything that you guys like, those ahas, like I'm using this tool and you know.
It's just a lot to take in, but it just that exercise on the NLP, that was amazing.
Did you like the NLP?
Yes.
Beautiful.
I found myself having a hard time picking something. I kept wanting to move to, like, is this gonna be too much? And then I just kind of breathed into it and was able to really get there.
I'm
So,
like that. I was like, okay, just pick one.
Is this too
They're-
stressful?
None of them are good.
Yeah.
But you know, you could even practice just on the feeling of tension, right? And so as I'm talking, it's hard for me to think of one. I have a couple ideas I thought of, but when I started talking, it's hard for me to hold on to it because I'm like, smell this, look at this. And it's not my story, right? I'm trying to create it for you.
Right.
But if I just focus on the tension in my chest,
Yeah.
it's enough to
Yeah.
start to separate that, right? And it goes back to that compassion for myself, right? I can just
Mhm.
let that go,
Mhm.
right?
It's a big one.
But we go to our happy place, and the happy place could be through scent, or it could be a visualization, or it could just be the idea that there is a happy place.
This always brings up that I used to have to travel quite often for this corporate company. Or corporation that I worked for, and very nice people, but it wasn't like I was stressed out to fly or anything, but. On occasion, because there was just so many things, you would be working toward whatever that is, maybe you were going to a seminar, you had to learn a whole new line or whatever. So the stresses were just normal things, you know? But I remember getting on a plane when I was going to Kansas City. And I had, for some reason, my head, I just had a horrific headache, like horrible headache. And I was like, oh my God, I have to travel right now with this headache and go and be with people and be, you know, whatever. And I remember when I landed and all I could think of was, I have to find some lavender oil somewhere in this airport. I was like, I'm gonna find it and I'm gonna find it. And sure enough, I remember coming down an escalator and like boom, right in front of me was the Body Shop.
Oh,
And I was like, there, I got lavender oil, got back on the plane. Cause I think it was just I don't know where I was, maybe going further. I don't remember now, but I remember thinking to myself, oh my gosh, this is gonna work. I just was so sold on that. And I did like you said, just like we just did. And I applied it to my temples and then I applied it to my trigger points here for headache. And boom, I'm not kidding. I fell asleep. I never fall asleep on that. I fell asleep, woke up, no headache, no nothing, gone. It was amazing. And I was sold on it ever since. I'm like, oh, scent is crazy feeling.
everybody has, not everyone likes that though, right? So
Yeah.
there's something for you. That's why we have so
But I
much.
have essentials. I don't think to use them. I have a few of them. It's like they're, duh. Start using.
I use it for energy when I feel a little low energy. Sometimes I'll grab peppermint or citrus. And it kind of perks me up.
I used to stress over not sleeping. So
Oh,
I
yeah, that was
remember
stressful.
like rolling it. I got a big day tomorrow. And I create so much stress. And now I think, I know I'm gonna fall asleep. I mean, it feels like I'm up all night, but I
Right.
end up waking up in the morning, so I know I sleep. But I just let it go and I think, okay, I am going to yoga nidra. I'm gonna breathe. And I just shifted my idea around it and I'm not so
Mhm.
stressed about it.
Mhm.
That's the worst thing that you can do when you can't sleep is to get stressed about it, just
Oh, I know.
absolutely aggravates the whole thing. I had that problem during the worst of the pandemic, and then I just said to myself, well, like, if you're not gonna sleep, you won't sleep, life goes on.
Yes.
And I would just lie there and say, well, just rest, okay, just rest, then your body will rest.
Yeah.
And of course you fall asleep.
Yeah,
Jennifer Aniston, I think it's one of the sleep programs and she has a commercial. And she's like laying there and she looks at the clock. Are you kidding me? And she rolls around and she looks again. What? You know, and that's that self-talk that we just do to ourselves and we create this story, right?
Mhm.
That and you know, it's like what you created.
Mhm.
You know, I'm gonna be miserable, I'm not feeling it, right?
yeah, it wasn't helping.
No, it doesn't help, it doesn't help.
Yeah. Thanks, Denise.
Well, thank
Always so enlightening and. God.
Well, I love the conversations.
In the NLP, I did choose something, it was an ongoing